live again for the second half of the Nearbound event. I'm actually going to start this one with just a quick little anecdote. This was a year and a couple months ago. Allan Adler and I rented out some back office place in I think it was like a yoga studio, Allan, where we had a whiteboard and we spent all day together, thinking about what we could accomplish, in the market by helping democratize this, knowledge and the transformation that the industry needed. And since then, Allan, you've been a fantastic contributor to Partner Hacker and helping lead, the charge with GoToEco. And then Jay, I remember telling you whenever we were starting Partner Hacker, you telling us that it was a terrible idea. And that that here's all the ways to screw this up, and you have a lot of ways to screw it up. So thank you both for your advice in keeping the industry first throughout this past year on Partner Hacker's journey, and now the announcement of joining forces with Reveal. So for today's conversation, and why I wanted to bring you both in, is to keep level heads. Isaac and I are no strangers to the hype machine, and have a conversation on what the industry really needs. And kind of approach it from that perspective. So thanks so much for joining, Jay and Allan.
Absolutely. Great to be here.
Awesome. So proud of you guys.
Thank you. Jay, let's kick it off with you. There's kind of two ways to approach, spinning this off, is like from the perspective of, the market conditions that we're seeing right now and kind of setting the stage, or the actual tactical challenges of kind of quantifying this, behavior, this motion around Nearbound. Maybe some commentary or questions on the task at hand for achieving this ultimate vision that we're laying out for Nearbound.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I try to do in this industry, is kind of quantify things the best we can. And so when I looked at and watched the first session, you do the history of inbound and outbound. It started with some things, before those terms, became part of our common language. In 1999, Salesforce got their start. There's about 5,000 companies that built themselves into that sales tech stack. And then years later, outbound really coalesced that decade of sales. In about 10 years later, 2009, there were companies that were mentioned, Marketo and Eloqua and HubSpot and Pardot and Acton and others, were marketing automation. And years later, HubSpot, pulled that together in inbound and coalesced the industry. And 9,932 companies built themselves into that ecosystem, which is on that tech stack today. And the head of marketing in many companies today spends more money on technology than the head of technology. So now we're in about 2019, 10 years later, I called the decade of the ecosystem, and some very early starts by companies up on the tech stack that's behind me. And now we're coalescing, a few years later around a mission. And I'm not sure if the channel and marketing and sales and other buyers are going to come together to spend more money on technology than everybody else. But now's the time. Very, very exciting.
Allan, what came to mind whenever you heard this news? You were in the circle of trust a little bit early, and kind of some of the challenges that we'd be facing from an industry's perspective we could use to spark.
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you look at the percentage of spend between partner-led and direct-led motions, we're still, a tiny percentage. And yet partners are so exciting. And so at the end of the day, the big challenge is how to get the budgets to move from 95% direct to some percentage of significance in partner-led. And so what I loved about Nearbound, and Simon, to you guys, hats off to Reveal to coming up with this, is that we're using a term that people can relate to your point, right? Inbound, outbound, Nearbound. These are terms that are meaningful to people outside of the partner space. And I think you nailed it, Jared. Like, if we keep talking about partner, we just keep getting people turning their attention somewhere else. So I was just really excited that we're coming up with terminology like GoToEco, go to market, that people can relate to. And the people that need to relate to it are the people with the budgets. They're not sitting around the partner table. They're sitting around marketing, product, sales, customer success. Those budgets need to be activated for partner-led. If they don't, we're just going to be, in a small group of people. Next year, this should be a 0 or 2 zeros at the end of the number of attendees, like you said, Jared.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious from both of you guys, where do you think we are? So I remember a year ago, I think it was, when Jay first came on Partner Up. Jay, I know you've been writing about this for several years. This is the decade. the ecosystem, the era of the ecosystem. And there's a lot of excitement around that. We've had that with the PLX Summit, all the things we've seen at Partner Hacker, a lot of excitement. Now 2023 hits, budgets are really tight. It's like revenue, no zero interest rate phenomena going on here in terms of, the way that startups are run. What changes? Like, it's kind of a chance to see, are we really there yet? Or rather, where are we? Because I think what we've seen, and this is the whole impetus of the Nearbound sort of initiative, starting with this guide, is that people will say, oh, cool. I can see, maybe I'm using account mapping to see who's in my network, or I can see how I can manage all these different partners with these different cool tools, or I can theoretically see how it's neat that customers follow a different journey now than the way that our company is structured. Nobody really disagrees with that, but they don't know what to do with it. Like, they're not doing anything with it. Partner people are trying to, but nobody else in the company seems to. So I'm curious, like, Allan, you're on the ground working with these customers. Jay, you're looking at the industry-wide view. If there's like steps in the process to becoming, to transforming companies to Nearbound, where are we in those steps? Are we like at baby step number 1, or are we a little further?
You go first, Jay.
I can start with an actual fact. Last week, CRN, biggest channel magazine in the world, put out their channel chiefs list, which they do every year, and you kind of buy your spot on the list. But 577 channel chiefs of Microsoft and AWS and Google and IBM and Cisco and Dell and Lenovo, kind of your Fortune-sized companies, 48% of them said that they're in the ecosystem mode already. Like, it's kind of check the box. And we around this table know that that's not true when you ask questions about the people and the processes and the programs and the technology. It's a very complex answer behind a very simple question, but you got half of people starting to think that way. Which is great. I'd like to go ask the head of marketing and the head of sales and product and customer success and others as well. But there's just last week, we kind of have half this market wanting to be in this new era, want to be in this new thing, which is, great for everybody. But we also know, to your question, that the average customer, a B2B customer, has 28 moments before they make vendor selection. And in the 2 decades of inbound and outbound, we've got to the point now where the average company might get into 4 of those moments towards the end, usually. And they might read your ebook or listen to your podcast or come in and talk to one of your salespeople and things. But the other 24 moments are owned by others. And in most cases, those 24 moments are owned by others who are not partners of yours. So that's the question back to the head of marketing and the way to quantify this. So in the technology, there's obviously data mapping, account mapping, escrow services that are fantastic. Reveal is one of the leaders in that. There's attribution as one of the islands of innovation. There's through to and with channel marketing, which is one of the islands. So there's maybe 4 islands of innovation that are helping us in those other 24 moments. And to what Allan said, to get some of the budget out of the CMO, we got to have an embedded partnership team reporting to them, dotted lining into a partner officer, and then having that budget to go open up those 28 moments, whether we earn them or not. We should have visibility to as many as possible.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I would add that what we really are struggling with right now is we have what we call an insight to outcome gap. We have these great insights that Reveal and Crossbeam give us about, like, look at the overlaps. Wow, the total available revenue is fantastic. But in between insight and outcome, you've got 2 things that are missing. One is skills, and the other is process. And until the skills increase and the process match, we're not going to get to what Jay said, which is opening up the budgets and opening up the capacity. So really, at the end of the day, if Nearbound can solve, and the teams around Nearbound can solve for the lack of skills and the lack of process, then we'll get RevOps to go, hey, I want to get that partner data plugged into all these different parts of the revenue cycle. And when that happens, the budgets move. But before that happens, we got to have the right skills and the right actions in order for people to take and at the end of the day, I put in a little formula into the chat, that I think what this is really all about is Nearbound becomes the amplifier of inbound and outbound. So the formula is Nearbound times inbound plus outbound equals the new go-to-market. And we need to teach that to the C-suite. Once the C-suite gets that, they go, oh, it's an amplifier. We're not changing. We're not inventing marketing. We're not inventing sales. We're just amplifying to create better outcomes. So I think that's our take.
I'll hop in here real quick, Allan, because you bring up a fantastic point and kind of setting the stage for the job to be done for our market. Is I just commented just this morning on Brian Elsasser. He's a great VP of sales, got a decent LinkedIn following, someone that I built a relationship with over the past year. He was the VP of sales for SaaStr. So, I mean, he's selling to sales tech companies that are trying to sell to other salespeople, right? So you couldn't think of a more sales-centric person. And his post was about, if you really want to be like a true account executive, your worth and your value is defined by your ability to do outbound, right? And all the AEs that, were good were like, yeah, I agree. You're not great unless you can break into an account cold. And I was like, well, or you could be smart and just work with someone that already has a relationship to get in. You don't have to play the game on expert mode, right? Like you could just build good relationships. And that started a great conversation, right? Because we were starting from the position of that word, outbound, right? It's how do you build relationships with people that aren't already screaming for your business, right? Like the mythical inbound lead that's like, hey, demo request, I have budget, I'm ready to go. Well, anyone can show for that person through a sales process. What about building a net new relationship and overlaying Nearbound to that, outbound thought process? I think is absolutely the job to be done for us.
Yeah, to go back to
Sorry,
go back to the average customer, the average customer today has 7 partners they trust. That was a McKinsey study that was done. And so if you are that salesperson in that outbound mode, the idea is that there's already trust built. Trust is the new data, as Isaac mentioned to us numerous times. And why wouldn't you work alongside those trusted people and wrap your customer, your buyer, and reduce that friction? Because if you go in cold, you might have 7 people blocking you. It's much easier to get those 7 people, at least being neutral. I mean, you're not asking for endorsements in every case, but at least reducing friction is something I would be thinking about as a salesperson.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what everything that you guys just said. Like, it's time for outcomes, and I would even say outcomes at scale, and it's time for results, because we have been advocating for the decade of ecosystem, all of us. It's clear that there is a mindset shift, and you have forward-thinking execs and sales leaders that are embracing that motion. That's very clear. We have the data now and the tools to support that thesis. Just as an anecdote, I was looking at some of the data we have, and 35% of the new logos that was signed by a Reveal user over the past 12 months, they were already a customer of one of their partners. So it means that it's more than 1/3 of the new logos you bring in every year. So that's huge. It means that there is volume, and there is really a source of information and a great go-to-market level you can already activate. But we also see currently with the complicated market condition that many partnership teams are impacted by layoffs. So there is kind of this paradox, and we are in this weird moment where you have data, vision, buy-in from early adopters, and at the same time there is a risk that it doesn't work out exactly the way we'd like it to. So I think it's our joint responsibility to really make it happen and to really focus on outcomes, as you put it, Allan.
I love the forward in this guide by Jill, which Jared already mentioned. Everybody needs to read. Just, it's so good. It's like 2 pages. It's incredible. But I just love that she's walking through where she was selling MarTech, selling Eloqua at a time when it didn't really exist. There was no marketing ops people, and most marketers, most CMOs would say, we don't care about lead scoring and improving the quality and all this, because we're judged. Our incentives are bring in the leads. Doesn't really matter the quality. So we're not gonna care. And we don't know what to do with this. Great marketing automation. That's cool. It's a neat toy, but I don't need it, and I don't know what to do with it. And finally, getting some customers to understood this required a change across the whole organization. It required changing the incentives, the way that things operate. Once you got some of those people to do it and you had those early examples, then you could point to those examples and point to those outcomes, to your point, Simon, like outcomes. Okay, this is what happened. They started winning. They started crushing everybody else. And I think that's like to me, that's kind of the stage that we're in. It's like, that's cool. These are cool tools and cool concepts, but none of us are incentivized in the sales org and the marketing org to change our processes or to adopt these things. And as soon as Allan's customers that he's working with, you get those changes, you get those examples. Hey, these people are winning because they're doing it. Then you start to get that cascade effect. And so I feel like that's kind of like right at that spot where we are, and why kind of introducing some of this really tactical stuff with this Nearbound initiative is what I'm so excited about.
Allan, there might be a follow-on question for you there. I mean, you've staked the next phase of your career on with Digital Bridge advising, consulting, and even starting to get your hands dirty by introducing kind of partner operations functions, bringing Chris on. What are you seeing standing in the way of this on the front line, to kind of like Isaac's point in that thread?
Yeah, well, no doubt about the fact that if partner leaders don't deliver outcomes, they get fired. And we're not delivering outcomes, to Simon's point, at scale. And at the end of the day, it's really that, right? I can deliver outcomes randomly, random acts of partnering, but if I can't figure out how to programatize it and deliver it formulaically, then I'll never get the budgets. And at the end of the day, that programmatic delivery at scale is the only way that we're going to get the budgets, because the other programs are already been cooked by VCs and formulated up the wazoo. So like, we've got to find the programmatic way to deliver outcomes at scale, period. So we should be thinking about that from day one. Yeah, you could do a partnership and you could prove something, but if you're not thinking about programmatizing, automating, getting this thing to actually have legs to become zeros and zeros and zeros and not ones and twos, then you're never going to get the budget. So to my mind, we're partway through the proving cycle, but we need to move much faster toward the programmatic cycle in order to get the budgets to come over. So that's the real barrier.
Jay, do you feel like I feel like to some degree we're speaking about partner departments and channel programs, and I will use those not interchangeably, just because of I would call channel being a matured, funded, full of P&L kind of business unit that can operate independently of the direct organization, whereas partner departments, let's say in B2B SaaS, often cannot operate independently. What's the state of channel from your point of view on recognizing the need to build a bridge over to the direct organizations as well? Because I feel like, what's old is new again. Like, there's a lot that we can learn by bringing these two kind of communities together. We use similar language. We're doing similar things. And I think we're experiencing two sides of the same coin, a challenge where partner departments are siloed in a department, channel business units are siloed inside of, its own P&L.
Yeah, there's a couple of big trends underway. For 40 plus years, we've been actually since August 12, 1981, kind of the introduction of the first IBM PC in this industry. We've been looking and measuring, monitoring and managing channels of distribution on the point of sale. And by the way, last year, 73.3%, over $3 trillion moved through channels. So that's the bifurcated part of the program. And you think departmentally, and when you think of direct sales, that's a conflict. That's a competitor to direct sales.
Channel conflict, right?
Yeah, so in the new market, though, in Nearbound, there is no competition. So if that customer buys, by the way, in a subscription consumption model, which most companies are now in or going towards, it's the first 30 days with the customer. Whether they buy from a channel partner of some type, whether they buy from a marketplace, which are growing at 84% compounded at the moment, whether they buy direct, it really doesn't matter, because that's the first 30 days with the customer. So in this new model, we're trying to measure, monitor, drive metrics towards the point of value of the partner instead of the point of sale. And it's bifurcated. We still have to run the $3 trillion and make sure that that renews, or as Allan said, we get fired. But the second point, if I don't get better at those first 28 moments, if I don't get better on a marketplace where 24% of deals today are partner clicking the mouse and clicking buy on behalf of the customer, if I don't get better at working with those 7 partners every 30 days to drive implementations, integrations, stickiness, upsell, cross-sell, enrichment, if I don't get better right across the customer cycle, I'm also going to get fired. So this new bifurcated model, I need programs, I need people out there, I need processes and automation and technology. All of these things together is the Nearbound strategy of how to do this in the future. And those chief partner officers now that get this are incented in a different way. They have different KPIs and they have different reporting.
This is why I'm so excited about the creating conversations component of this, because conversations live independent of platform. So like my wife just recently was telling me, because I was explaining some of this stuff to her. I try occasionally to explain to her what it is that I'm doing. And she was telling me about a product she recently bought. And she said, when I was at the checkout online, it said, how did you hear? And they only had a handful of options. And she's like, I just clicked Google because that's where I actually went to type in the name of the company to find the website. She goes, but that's not how I heard about them. I heard about them on a podcast I listened to like 3 or 4 times. And then a guest on that podcast had another podcast, and I listened to her podcast and I heard about it there. And then I went into this little group of moms, this little community, I think it's a Facebook group. And then I was texting with some other moms. These are all conversations about the problem area that this product solves. They're happening in podcasts, in Facebook, on text message threads, face-to-face. Those conversations create the demand for the product. And then she goes to Google. And what is that company doing? They're probably optimizing for Google because she selected Google, right? Like not understanding that this is not where these things are happening. And so how do you get out of that and be a part? And that's why I love, again, like this combination of what we're trying to do with creating conversations that are not trapped in any one platform. Yeah, they're on LinkedIn. Yeah, they're at live events. Yeah, they're at events like this, digital events. Yeah, they're in Slack groups, but they're across platforms. The conversations, it's about the ideas and the people, not whatever channel that they're on specifically. So I think that's what it takes to kind of get the transformation.
100%. Maybe, Allan, we can talk briefly about this. I don't want to take up the rest of the time, but I think it's worth mentioning something that we launched last year that we're going to put some more guardrails around, not just in light of the news, but because I think it's the right thing to do, is the Ecosystem Council. Maybe talk about that for a minute. That we don't have to go into too much detail, but we've set up a council at partnerhacker.com, and that has our list of advisors. Allan chairs this, and we're actually structuring to where we'll publish, the email that goes out, kind of like with our roadmap, our updates, what we're working on, challenges we're hearing in the market, things that we're seeing on the front lines, just to go, hey, this is where we're going, and this is what we're thinking about. So it's kind of doubling down on Isaac's, famous phrase, learn out loud, to get feedback from the people closest to us, the people closest to you, on, are we driving value? Are we taking this feedback from Jay and Allan on the challenges that are facing you all out there? And are we doing a good enough job at helping you drive those conversations and move those things forward? So we'll be sending out a monthly email, publishing it publicly, and then a quarterly meeting where we bring everyone together to go, look, hey, here's where, you were spot on and it helped the industry, or here's where you missed the mark and you all totally screwed this up. Allan's definitely not shy of telling me when I screw up. So definitely looking forward to that. Allan, anything to call out about the council and how we try to codify that and make that a more formal part of how Partner Hacker impacts the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the first thing I want to just be really clear on, Isaac, is that we're going to make sure that we honor the intent, not to make Partner Hacker the marketing mouthpiece of Reveal.
100%.
Because it's very, very important that Partner Hacker retain that big picture. And for that matter, Nearbound the same, right? Because we're trying to lift all boats in a harbor where there's not very much water. So if we want to get more water in the harbor, we got to be all rowing in the same direction. So that's the first thing. And the other thing I'd say is, let's expand the council to include the people who understand marketing, sales, and customer success pain points, so that we're not a bunch of partner people talking to partner people, which is why there's not enough water and not enough boats.
Absolutely.
So let's make that council more potent.
Yeah, you had a conversation yesterday with one such person, Matt Cameron, I believe. See, I know about your convos that you don't even know I know about.
Dude, that's scary. Where are you listening to? Some kind of AI that's monitoring all of the people you introduced me to.
I live in market, baby. I where these conversations happen is where I want to be. So I'm excited about that. Matt Cameron was he runs Sassy Sales Leadership, and it was the first formal training I ever had as a sales leader. So I look forward to Matt opining on, hey, here's where the rubber is not meeting the road with all the crazy partner stuff you're talking about. I know what it looks like at Salesforce. I was a sales leader at Salesforce. I sold with partners. Here's where y'all are messing up. So Matt will be a great addition to that, in addition to some marketing leaders that I can't wait to discuss with you who have recently taken the partner pill. Some big names.
No, and this is part of the Together network. We got marketing together, podcast and newsletter, selling together, podcast and newsletter. Obviously, the PLX Summit is all about this. So 100% like getting this conversation happening in those other departments.
Thank you, Trevor. I really appreciate that that comment that every board of directors and executive leadership team that is serious about growth over the next decade should listen to this chat. That's what we're trying to bring is Jay and Allan's outsider perspective on the inside of the industry, but not as an outsider to this merger and this announcement and what we're building with Nearbound. Iron sharpens iron, steel sharpens steel, and I'm excited to continue moving this forward. Simon, if I cut you off there.
No. Just one last thing on the council, just to make clear that I'm not part of it, and I fully trust the members to be as independent as possible, and to call you guys out if anything goes wrong, and to call me out as a founder and as the CEO of Revere. I think it's this is something I've said before, but I want to restate that this is really a commitment to the market and a commitment to also to all of you that. We want Partner Hacker to operate as independently as possible and to stay true to its mission, right? So that's really important to me, and we're going to make sure that we are accountable on that.
Great call out, Simon. Well, folks, everyone at nearbound.com, thank you so much. We had 400 people here live at one point, carried about 300 live the entire time. And that's not counting the folks on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for this past year. I'm not kidding when I say that everyone said that I was crazy for
including me,
Partner Hacker, including Isaac. I mean, even my wife, she's like, "You're starting a stupid podcast? Like, what are you doing? Like, what is this thing?" And we live for helping you. That's why we're all here. This is not some like acquisition where Isaac and I are sailing off into the sunset. We're part of this joint venture for the long term. And are going to continue to work with the industry to take this mainstream. So thank you so much, everyone. Go get that guide, the ultimate guide to driving revenue with Nearbound sales right now.
And we need your help. Like, let's go make the Nearbound moment real. Tell us, like, we're going to have a V2 of this guide. If you have things that we should add and anecdotes, send them to us. We've got a lot more coming, and we need everybody to help tell these stories and to get these conversations growing and moving into those other departments, as we mentioned. So thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah. Leverage the Nearbound moment to take these conversations to the main street, sales and marketing. The press release just went live. The site's live. So the news is out there. I think it's a good moment to push these conversations forward. And we hope that we're bringing you the lexicon, the language that will move mountains for you and your organizations. Peace out, Nearbound. I can't say peace out, partner up, but we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you all.